Hey guys, welcome back to the 19th episode of 11 Bang Gang. So tonight, man, we got an Army guy who was a forward observer. It's going to be some cool stories. Hopefully, he's a fellow Afghan brother. So went to Afghanistan. His name's Sean Young. Say what's up, Sean.
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Yeah, man, it's good. So where'd you grow up at?
Oh man, I grew up in Sharpsburg, Maryland, right outside of the Antietam battlefield. So history and warfare have kind of like always been a part of my life, and I loved it. I love history.
You have family in the military?
So my great grandfather was in World War II. He was a Cav Scout in the Army, and he helped shut down concentration camps in Germany. And then my grandfather on my dad's side, he was a Marine in Vietnam.
Did you grow up like watching the History Channel a lot?
No, actually, my grandpa. So you know how like those Vietnam veterans, you get like two classifications of them. One is like they're all rah, 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 like let's go to war. And then you got the other guys that were like so shell shocked that they don't even want to like own a weapon. And that's who my grandfather was. So like I couldn't, I didn't shoot a weapon until like literally right before I went to basic training. Never watched any war movies, nothing.
Wow. So what made you want to join the military?
9/11.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in 7th grade, 9/11. I kind of made a statement that I wanted to be a Marine. And my father kind of held me to the fire. My life changed directions when I was a teenager, almost like right before I joined. And he was like, "No, dude, you're going to join the Army or you're going to join the military." And so went to a recruiting station, and it was like the Navy was open, and like I don't know if you've had any run-in with like Navy recruiters, but they're cocky and arrogant as fuck. Sorry for the language.
No.
They're arrogant as fuck. And then so I did like the pre-ASVAB with them, and then went across the hallway to the only other office that was open, and that was the Army. And the recruiter was like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "Fuck, I don't even know, man."
That's good. I mean, I remember because I knew I was going to be a Marine. My dad was a Marine, so for me, it was obvious. And my dad told me any other branch, he'd disown me. So the Navy recruiters were right next door, and they knew me, and I had been in and out of there for months, and they used to hound the shit out of me. They used to be like, "Hey, come over here, dude. You don't want to be with them dumbass Marines." And I spent 7 months on a naval ship on my first deployment, so I know all about the Navy, and I dodged that fucking bullet. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, I had no. It was like essentially like just data collection. I walked in there and I was like, "Nah, this ain't where I want to be." And I turned right back around.
Yeah. So what did the Army recruiter? What options did he give you, or were you like, "Dude, let me shoot people"? And
I honestly, dude, like I had no idea. I went to do my ASVAB maybe a few weeks after I signed my initial contract, and I half-assed it, so I didn't get very many choices. And because my last name, I was the last in line to choose a job. I sat there all day from 9 to 5 waiting to get a MOS, and it was like I just sat there, and my recruiter came in and was like, "No, we're going to get you seen because you got to go back to school tomorrow." So I walked in the office. They offered me 13 Fox. I had no clue what that was. I didn't know what anything was, like, to be honest. And the dude's like, "Yeah, you're going to sit in an office in New York City and watch bombs drop." And I'm like, "Dude, that sounds dope, right? Like, that sounds sick as fuck."
Yeah.
He lied.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Hey, well, it's funny. It's like I knew what job I wanted. And that's the way the Army does that, because the Marines were like, you can sign an open contract to a field, you can sign an exact job, but like that job is guaranteed. So it's like if you sign for 0311, you're going to get 0311. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of weird. They had y'all pick at like what sounds like a career day.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was, man. Like they had a bunch of MOSs open, and based on like how you scored in the ASVAB depended on like what
Yeah.
you had open to you. And I know guys that were walking away with contracts for like nuclear defense testing or some shit like that. I'm like, dude, what?
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm walking away with a job that I'm like, hey, I'm about to go city. Bullshit.
So what? So where'd you go to boot camp at?
I went to basic training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, home of the field artillery. Terrible place, the worst place in the world aside from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I spent roughly about 6 months there. I did my basic and my AIT there because that's where they had, the field artillery at. And then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia for airborne school.
Okay, hold up. Question I ask everybody: expectation versus reality. You kind of you've been talking to the recruiter. You had your uncle may not, or your he may not talked about it, but it's like, okay, you kind of had a gist. What was it like? What you thought it was going to be?
Oh man, so I thought that it was going to be like brutality, right? Like just getting your ass whooped every single day, like the drill sergeant's putting hands on you, shit. Because that's what I was told.
Mm.
But my childhood wasn't the greatest when I lived with my grandfather or my father. So when I went into basic training, the reality was it was easy for me, right? Like I was in physical shape. I could walk for an extended period of time, right? Like I was used to getting screamed at and yelled at, so none of what they were doing really fazed me. But I had a level of respect for, people in positions of power.
Right. Yeah. Oh, sweet. Yeah. And I've actually heard that before. I've heard more than one guy be like, dude, going to the military wasn't crazy. It was like a break. It felt good. Like my childhood was just shit, dude. Like I was getting three squares and it was a good life and I was getting paid for it. So yeah, man. Okay. So you go to Georgia for airborne school. So artillery unit that's airborne qualified.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's actually it's a lot more common than people think because with the different airborne units out there, you got the 82nd Airborne, which is a division. You got 4 brigades, now 3 under them. And then you got the 173rd, which I was a part of, and 425 in Alaska, which I was also a part of. And so they had to fill those slots, right? Everybody had to be airborne qualified or be willing to go to airborne school because everybody in those units needed to perform airborne operations at any given notice.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so you got commo guys that are airborne. You've got cooks that are airborne. You've got finance dudes that are airborne. Like, if you're in an airborne unit, you are going to go to airborne school or you need to be airborne qualified.
Interesting. I never realized that all the, the logistical side so need to be airborne qualified. I didn't really never the Marine Corps is weird. We don't do, we have airborne guys, but, it's not a lot of, so for the most part, we were, like, that was our thing. If you were in my company, you had to be Helo certified. So you had to be able to fast rope. You had to be able to do all that because we were a Helo company. So it's kind of, I assume, the same kind of thing, but everyone goes. That's interesting.
Huh? Yeah, like most times the Marines and airmen and even the Navy guys, they were all part of like a special unit, right? So like if you got airborne qualified, like you were as a Marine, you're probably in MARSOC, or if you're in the Air Force, you are probably a JTAC about to get tasked down to an airborne unit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because our recon guys were also airborne, so recon, MARSOC. I knew one dude who he used that as reenlistment incentive. So what do you want when you reenlist? And he was like, I wanted to go to airborne school. He absolutely hated it. He loved the airborne part of it, but he hated it. I'm from Georgia. Like, that weather was fucking terrible, dude. And I'm like, hey, bro, I live in it, so wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I went to airborne school in November.
Oh,
So it was like the wind was ripping right through us, man. They had us out there in our PT shorts, and I'm like, I'm not used to this because I came from the Oklahoma heat and to Georgia cold.
yeah.
And I'm just like, this sucks.
It's funny because it differs from year to year. So some years down here it's cold. This year it was 75 degrees on Christmas Day, and then the first 3 weeks of January were like in the mid 20s, and we were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, that's insane.
So yeah. Um. So where do you go back to the unit in? Where was that at?
So I ended up getting assigned to 173rd Airborne Brigade in Vicenza, Italy. And
Okay.
I, I served in their headquarters unit for maybe a year. And I was slated for a deployment. And then we go on the deployment halfway through the deployment, or maybe a quarter of the way. I got tasked down to go to one of the sister companies that eventually would be very famous for a Medal of Honor recipient, as well as 2 documentaries that came out of that deployment.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh. So when you were in the headquarters, what were you doing there? Just doing.
So I was like an assistant to our brigade non-commissioned officer, or brigade fires non-commissioned officer. So I worked night times. I worked from like 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and I worked in the talk. Like I was just a typical talk bitch, right? Like would go in there, receive, ammo counts, fire missions, all that stuff, and then document those, send those off to division headquarters, which at the time was the 82nd. They were in charge of RC East. And so I'd send them up to them, and that was about it. I had zero combat experience whatsoever.
So then when you went to where deployed, where did y'all go?
So that first part of the deployment, I was in Jalalabad. And then when I got tasked down, I went to Battle Company, 2nd Battalion, 503rd, in the Korengal Valley.
Oh, shit. Now, in the Korengal, you assigned to so in the Marine Corps, we had what was called a FIST team. They were called a fire support team. So it was made up of, you had a pilot who was your FAC for your forward air controller. You had a lieutenant who was the FO. He was the forward observer for artillery. And then he had 3 dudes under him who were all radio operators. They were all forward. There were FOs. So, and I imagine the Army would have something similar, maybe.
A little bit different. So we didn't have JTACs assigned to us unless we're going on big missions. And that would come from like brigade or division headquarters. They would get tasked down, come down to us on a helicopter. But going down the list, you had your lieutenant and you had like either a sergeant first class or staff sergeant, which is E6 or E7. And they would be the fire support office at your company level. And then down from there, for every platoon, we had one forward observer. And under him, you had one RTO. And so the way that missions would run, once you became more acclimated to the area that you're working in, your FO would go on a patrol and then come back. And if there was another patrol for another squad or another team, the RTO would go. And so like they would become organic to the squads or teams that they were going to be working with.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So we had one company, JTAC, but he stayed with me. When I was on the, I was with the captain a bunch. I was the PSD guy, but every time we would go somewhere, we had the JTAC with us. He was, but his FO were embedded with each platoon. So the 3 platoons had their own FO. So, but anytime, we had to call for fire, call in all that stuff, we would run through the JTAC or through the FO. And yeah, so I like that. I mean, it's kind of the same system, not really, but it's close.
Yeah. Every FO for the most part in the platoons was trained to, obviously call for fire, right? With your artillery, your mortars, but they were also trained to do CCA 5 lines and CAS 9 lines. So if we didn't have a JTAC attached to us, then we could run through that format, and it would go up the echelon and come back down, and we'd be able to. Now, that first deployment, I got to control every asset that we had available to us, with the exception of like an AC-130. So, like, that experience alone was pretty awesome.
Yeah. JTAC school. Yeah.
So the Army.
Now go.
The Army has a program that's called JFO, so Joint Fires Observer. So you go either to Oklahoma, or they'll send a team out to you to train you, and you learn the capabilities of every aircraft, every weapon, every site that they have attached to the aircraft. And you also learn the format of CCA 5 lines, CAS 9 lines, and then you go into coordinating fires. So you learn how to coordinate your fires between artillery, mortars, deconflict airspace for CCA and CCA and CAS to come in and persecute the target, as well as they mixed in some naval gunfire, which was cool, but I would never use it in my career. So,
right. Yeah. Low insight listeners that don't ever, y'all were just the dumb grunts that never see this shit behind the scenes. This is the kind of stuff that the JTAC and the FO, I used to hear them talk about, was deconflicting. If you got artillery coming in and you got birds in the air, like he said, you have to deconflict that airspace. And that's real shit right there. And yeah, man, that's cool. That's cool. I've never got to talk about that with anybody else on here. So
yeah. Once you get the format down and you can do everything, and you use a terrain association, you got your targets of opportunity or known targets out there, then it becomes really easy, right? Like, so we would introduce 60s, 80 or 60s and 120s. We didn't have 81s, but we had 60s and 120s. We shoot those, and then by the time those are impacting, the 155s and 105s would be cleared to fire, so they're shooting into our airspace. And then we would have, like, it was almost as soon as we said troops in contact, we didn't have Kiowas. We did have Kiowas in country, but they couldn't fly so high because we were, at a much higher elevation. So we had Apaches come in and they would persecute the target, fly off. And then we would have A-10s come in, persecute the target, fly off. Yeah. It was madness. It was explosions.
So tell me, man, I need a little, okay, so I've read about 3 books on the Korengal Valley. For those of you who are listening that have never heard of the Korengal Valley in Afghanistan, go look it up, dude. There's tons of, like he said, you got Medal of Honors that have come out of the Korengal Valley. This was some rough fighting, dude. So, well, first of all, how far away was your artillery shooting in from somewhere else, or was it based in the Korengal somewhere?
No, so we didn't have like a formal, we had a formal operating base. So we had the Korengal outpost. But further north of that, we had Camp Blessing, which was where the battalion was stationed at, and that's where they had the 105s and 155s. Okay. So if you're driving, it would probably be 3 hours, but in reality, it's maybe 10, 15, 20 miles tops that they're shooting.
Oh, okay. So not too far.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, but tell us a little bit about the Korengal. Pretty rough fighting. So you get there, what's your first impression? You've never been to combat. You've never seen anything like it, what was that like?
Man, so like the first night not the first night, the first morning that I got there, we had a rocket attack on the COP. And I was sleeping in a bunker, literally underground. Like somebody had dug out dirt, placed a tarp above it with timber. And that's what I was sleeping in. So one wrong rocket could have ended everything. And I had to accept that there's a possibility I could die, and fuck it, right? That's what I signed up for. But it was just mountainous, dude. Like, you had ridge lines everywhere, man. Like, you step out and you got ridge lines to your front. You got a valley that runs in between. To the south, there's mountains. To the north, as far as you can see, you look to the north and you see mountains. And then behind you is nothing but mountains. So you're literally surrounded by mountains. And yeah, dude, I definitely earned my combat action badge in that deployment, but not from rocket attacks like everybody else has.
Yeah, you with the boys out there. So you get there. What's the mission in the Korengal when you were there? Because the couple books I've read, it talks about like there were different times. So what year is this, by the way? That's what I need to establish the timeline.
07 to 08. So like right in the middle of the surge.
Okay. Yep. So you are you guys clearing the Korengal at this point? Or are you maintaining a peacekeeping force there?
Oh no. We're out there actively hunting down Taliban. And we established, well, I wasn't a part of that, but our second platoon established Restrepo. And so that was a big, sore thumb there. And then just west of that was OP Dallas that I helped establish after that. And that was wild, man. Like it was like the Wild West. Like everything that people say, like it was like the Wild West. Like if you've seen Korengal or you've seen Restrepo or any of the actual like news documentaries that were out there, we were really out there in PT shorts and flip flops getting into firefights. We were really going out the wire with no tops on, just IBAs on and helmets and weapons. A lot of the times we had to put on gear because it was like the optics, right? So like you had to put on a combat shirt, or you had to put on, a top for it. But most times we weren't shaving. Most times we were just out there roughnecking it, man, living in the dirt.
Different units are different. Like some units are like, you're going to get a haircut the whole deployment. Some are, we don't give a shit. But what was so were you guys doing more ground patrols, or were you doing like vehicle, or a mix of both?
So the roads were so small that we wouldn't be able to like really do mounted patrols. We did have a platoon that was a distro platoon, so they would roll out and provide security for us if we needed it. But we were all strictly dismounted, right? Like walking up mountains, walking up valleys and draws, man. Like that's where I learned how to walk mountains. That's where I got my nice impeccable ass that women seem to like want to grab, but it was, it was just a life, man. It was like the lifestyle, dude. That deployment was kind of like everything that people wanted to see out of a deployment was people getting fucked up, shit getting blown up, man. It was crazy.
Was IEDs out there, or?
Yeah, so we had IEDs, not that many. We encountered maybe a handful. One of my buddies, Murph, he lost his legs in an IED right as I got into the valley. So, damn. Yeah, he lost his legs. We had, at the beginning of Restrepo, you see, an IED blow up. That was just north of us on the road. We didn't have enough ISR to actually like be able to see what was going on. We had to request ISR. So it was just, it was kind of, it was one of those things. It was wild.
That's, it's funny. The couple that did fighting up north in Afghanistan, I think only one of them said they had a lot of IEDs. That was more of a Hellman thing. Like, down where we were north of Sangin with 3-5, all those guys, they seem to have a shit ton of IEDs. And, it seems like up north, dude, y'all just got into just gunfight after gunfight. Now, don't get me wrong. We cool gunfights, but like, that seems like y'all did that. Like, that's all y'all did. But, I'm not normally like, I don't like to ask about who you shot or when you shot, but I do like to ask the first time you got shot at. Like, tell me, like, because this is like, time where you're like, this shit gets real, and it can be funny. I mean, the first time I got shot at was just a couple sniper rounds, but still, it's that first time. Oh fuck,
Yeah. So, we were doing a patrol in a town called Loic Lake, which was. It was like a peaceful village, but it also housed a lot of Taliban. So they wouldn't shoot at us from the village. They would just leave the village and then shoot at us. So we were leaving. We got ICOM chatter that they're in place and that they're going to shoot at us. And my positioning was I was right behind the LT, right in front of the gun team, and so like and right behind the RTO. So we're walking up this like rock face that had water going down. I'm like, oh, that's not bad. I watched two people slip and fall in front of me, and like our back is to like a known location we get shot at from. And so we're walking up this rock face, and I'm like, oh, that's not bad, not bad. I slipped, and I shit you not, I slipped, spread like Patrick the fucking Starfish, and then rounds start coming in, bouncing around me. And my goddamn, our company commander was on that on that patrol with us. He grabbed me by the back of my bag and pulled me up this goddamn thing, up this rock face. And like he saved my life because the fucking bullets were boom, 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 all around me. I was like, I'm dead, dude.
Oh shit! It's amazing how like there's so many times where you're just like you should have got hit, and it's like they're just it's like I tell people, I'm like, you want to not get shot by the Taliban, just stand wide ass in the open. But if you're around a corner, there'll be a ricochet, dude. It'll find you, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Man.
I've seen everything, man. Like I've seen people get shot through the wall, which I didn't think was even possible. I've seen dudes lay on IEDs that were not triggered. They just had the pressure plate there. Right. I've seen fucking everything. Shit was crazy. They like people think Afghanistan was a walk in the park because they didn't really hear about it because the focus was on Iraq. But god damn, Afghanistan was crazy.
This is why I do this because people, there's just not enough stuff talked about, man. Like we just don't, you don't hear about it. So do you go back to Afghanistan on your second two rotations? Were they just as crazy?
All three. Well, I did four rotations.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So my second deployment was in the same province. We were in Kunar province, but we were further north.
Is there anything else crazy on this rotation?
Oh, on the second one, dude. Second one was no. Have you ever had like a near-death experience where like shit slows down?
Yes.
I had one of those.
Tell me about it.
Oh man. So I was at OP Dallas, and we were in this firefight. We were engaging from OP Dallas, and there was this like bottleneck that from one of the gates all the way down into the actual base that was exposed to everything. And so I was like, I need to get eyes on the target. That's my job. So I run up and I get behind this HESCO. I'm like sitting down. I call in the fire mission. They're like, all right, shot out. Or they were like shot over. I was like shot out, and I popped my head up, but I stood up. So I had like my whole midsection up exposed. And I saw this round come in, and it slow, like fucking time slowed down. It was like parallel with my face. I was like, this is it. This is it. The bitch to the left. And I sat down, like I physically watched it impact the HESCO next to me. And I just turned around, sat down. I was like, round unobserved. That's the only time that I was like round unobserved. And they're like, what do you mean unobserved? I was like, I heard the impact.
Yeah, unobserved. Yeah, like I've had one of those where it's like it just time slowed down, and it's the weirdest thing. And it was the only time in the entire time I was in Afghanistan that I ever like stopped and was just like, oh shit. But I couldn't move. Like it was like you're just frozen. And I was always worried that was going to happen at the most inopportune time, and it kind of did, kind of didn't. But you know what I'm saying? Like every other reaction was solid, but it was like, yeah, because I thought that time, just like you, I thought like I was like, this is it, this is it, and it's weird, man. God, that had to have been crazy.
Yeah, it was insane, absolutely insane. I look back at that time and I'm like, whoever was watching over me. Like, thank you.
That was some Matrix. Oh, holy shit. Okay, so if the rest of these we're gonna have to kind of blow through these, but that's fine. So okay, because I got questions on the after. So you get back from this deployment. What year is this now?
Oh wait, so we got back in September, like around September 2008. So it was a 15-month deployment.
Okay, so you get back in September of 2008. So when do y'all roll out again?
December 2009.
Okay, so you have about a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you get married during any of this time?
No,
Okay.
man. No, I was dating somebody, an Italian woman. She was nice at the time until I got deployed. I think we know where
Mm,
that goes.
yeah. So you're just getting drunk with the boys. You're telling all the combat stories from deployment. You do that for a year because I see this going and it's not going to go good. So you roll out the second time. Where do y'all go then?
So we go to the Cunard province, same province, different location. We go to Cap Mati, which is further north than I was, but it's like the furthest north you can go in that province before
Right.
you hit the next province north. So we were there, and we were doing regular missions, but my platoon at the time was a QRF platoon. So
Mhm.
we were, everything was mounted. I was grateful for it. That's
Mhm.
that deployment is where I hit my first IED in the truck, the only IED I hit. Um, but yeah, dude, shit was crazy. So we went there, and then when I think it was 101st, when 101st came and relieved us there, we went further south into like Kandahar province, I believe, maybe just north of that. And that shit was wild because we were supporting our sister battalion. My platoon was, and our rules of engagement were a lot less restrictive than theirs were. So they would start to get in a firefight and they couldn't return because they couldn't get PID. They were like, "Hey, first platoon, fuck them up." And we just, we had tow missiles, we had 50s, we had Mark 19s. Like it was just like a free for all. We fucked things up that deployment. It was great.
Man, that's the that rule. It was I went in 2011 and it wasn't bad except for like the dude shoots at you, he drops the rifle, he walks in the house, it's him, dude in a brown man dress, but you can't shoot. I'm say I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, so high op tempo even on the second deployment.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So like we were running a minimum of 4 missions a day, like 4 patrols a day. And that would not include like QRF missions where somebody in our battalion was getting fucked up. So we had to go, support them. We were providing overwatch for resupply units that would come to the area because they would get shot at. And we were running our regular missions. And dude, it was just a lot. It was a lot.
So y'all were just basically running like y'all were like a QRF / everything team. Man, what kind of aircraft were you guys seeing on stage when you were out there? Because I know what we had, but just curious, like what were you guys using?
So the most common aircraft that we used were Kiowas, just because it was at a lower elevation, they could actually fly there. We had some A-10s on station every once in a while, but it was predominantly Kiowas, and I loved working with Kiowas because they would get down eye level with you and fly, or they would bring like a small resupply. So if like one of our firefights we got into, it was like an hour and a half long, and they came to resupply us and flew off and then engaged targets or like right after.
Man, dude, I don't think we ever seen a Kiowa. Like we had F-18s, the A-10s, we had, you name it, Harriers, British Harriers. Those guys were fucking awesome because they were cool to talk to on the radio. But like, wow, man, like I can't believe that because we never had a Kiowa. Now we had Cobras, the Marine Corps gunship, but man, we never seen any Kiowas. Kind of jealous, dude. That sounds pretty tight.
Yeah, I love the Kiowa pilots because when we were transitioning AOs, we got to stop at Jalalabad where they were, and we actually got their combat footage, and we gave them ours. And so it was like cool to like exchange that and have that. And, the pilots were just like super cool. They were all like LTs or warrant officers, so they were all just like, "Hey, let's go out to lunch." And I'm like, "Are you fucking paying for lunch? Because I can't."
Yeah, no shit. Jalalabad. How was Jalalabad? Because Marines don't ever get to go to Jalalabad unless you're in special operation.
Okay. So it was kind of like Bagram. You've been to Bagram?
No.
Okay. So it was like Bagram or Kandahar, like the big air bases. So essentially, man, like they had everything. They had a big ass PX. They had like multiple gyms. They had a running track, airfield. They had one side of the airfield that was all for the special dudes.
Yeah.
But it was chill, man. They had running internet and running water.
Yeah. I mean, that was like Leatherneck, for the Marines that came in and out of Bastion or Leatherneck, and that was it. They had like a theater and all that shit, and like, I mean, we didn't even have toilets, where we're at, same with you guys, I'm sure. So your second deployment, you're running a little bit more. Your first deployment, they've always, the guys that I've talked to, are like, look, your first deployment, you learn you can survive. Your second deployment, you start to go, okay, I know this game, and now I'm going to start being better at it. So how did you feel about like when going into combat the second time? You're like, okay, now it's time to play, and I know what I'm doing.
It was cool because I was like the old man, right? Like because we had a bunch of dudes that were privates that had never been deployed, didn't know what to look for. They just been in training, and a lot of our senior leadership had been to Iraq. So I was like the old man from Afghanistan. I was like, hey, this is what you should be watching for. And so it was really cool to like see those guys get those experiences that I got on my first deployment. But it was also really cool from my perspective because I learned radios better, right? So like I wasn't just an FO, I was our platoon RTO. So I was uploading the radios. I was learning how to properly, mount and maintain a 50 cal or a Mark 19. I even got to shoot a TOW one time. So like, it was cool, man. But also because I am an FO and an RTO, I have to shadow the fucking lieutenant wherever he goes. And because of my truck, we had a TOW mounted on our truck. And so I was the guy that was back there popping the hood during firefights, resupplying the missile. And so that was a little bit fucking scary too.
Yeah, man, y'all must have rolled through a couple of TOWs, man, at least.
Oh yeah. I think we shot anywhere from I wouldn't say every firefight, but
yeah,
a lot of firefights we shot in between 2 to 6.
Man, I wanted to shoot a TOW. I had one night where I was on the TOW optics, and they were just like, hey, it was like we were out somewhere and we were holding a position, and they were like, hey, if anybody shows up, just put them in the crosshairs and hit this button and hit this button. And I was like, all night, I'm like, come on, motherfuckers, let's do something. But I never got to shoot it. So I'm jealous, man. That's pretty tight. Yeah, man. So you guys in this second deployment, y'all are just running that. How long is this deployment? Is it oh shit. Dang. Do you go home halfway through this?
Yeah. So I go home halfway through it, and I was the last guy in my platoon to go on leave. I was the first one in country, last guy to go home. And I mean, I can say it now because I'm out of the army and I can't be persecuted. But like, I did a ton of drugs on fucking leave. There was not a single day of that 18 days I was sober. I just drank my fill, did enough drugs to kill a few small armies, and came back like it was nothing, man.
How's your mentality halfway? Your deployment and a half in. What's the mentality? I mean, you've seen a lot of shit, but you're pushing it like we're gonna be with the boys. Fuck it.
It was very much if he dies, he dies.
Yeah.
That woman that I met that I was dating, I ended up being engaged to. I found out halfway through the deployment that she was out there getting her back blown out. And I was like, all right, man, like, fuck it. If he dies, he dies. That was my first like real heartbreak. And so I was like, fuck it, man, don't care.
Oh man, so you were just like, I'm gonna fucking die over here and I'm gonna get a sweet medal. And yeah. Yeah, man. I know people that were like that. I know them very well. Oh, so So anything else crazy happened on the second one? This
Uh,
work?
we like 5 days before my birthday, my truck hit an IED. We were providing Overwatch for one of the platoons that was going into this area that we were trying to establish as a fire base. They got hit by an IED. They lost their driver, their medic, and their fucking platoon sergeant in that.
Man.
So we had another RCP unit come retrieve the bodies and escort the vehicles out. Simultaneously, the guys that triggered the IED fucking fled the scene and booked it. So we had one of the platoons go out and engage the guys. They ended up chasing these guys into a complex that had like a hidden area. And I guess one of the guys had a grenade on him. One of the Taliban guys had a grenade on him, tossed it out. One of the guys in the platoon on a fire team ended up jumping on his buddy so that he wouldn't get hit by shrapnel. They fucked those two guys up, like the fuck the Taliban dudes up. And so my platoon was in charge of taking the Taliban guys and the cache that they found back to the base. And so the road was not cleared, had not been cleared whatsoever. I had this just like real bad feeling about it. I was like, I was talking to my lieutenant, and like the pecking order of vehicles, a lieutenant would never be first vehicle whatsoever. But he just was like, yeah, we're going to be first vehicle. And I was like, no, we don't want to do that. He's like, yeah, we'll be first. And I was like, all right, man, whatever. I don't know shit. I'm just a fucking specialist at this time. And we rolled right past this house. Boom. Ass went up in the air. We were in MATVs at the time. Ass went up in the air. I pulled my gunner down. My driver, the LT, and our gunner would knock the fuck out. The IED like hit right underneath me, sent shockwaves up my spine, all that shit. And yeah, dude, it was crazy. I got out like with this wave of emotion. Like, I'm happy to be alive, angry I got blown up, sad that, it happened, all these other things. It was crazy. Absolutely insane.
We hit a fucking IED. That was like, God damn it. But like, the Matt V's, man, like actually not the last episode, but the episode before you, one of my buddies that was down here, he got blown out of a Matt V, dude. It's missing his leg of it. Yeah, fucking straight out. Took a chunk of arm off. Yeah, he was my first in-person podcast guest. Good friend of mine. But yeah, dude. So like we knew, I don't know if y'all knew this, but we knew that the Matt V's were not as capable as the MRAP. And I was MRAP. Pick one driver, the damn mine roller. But like even the mine rollers wasn't a for sure thing, man. Like, and so did y'all have army units coming through and like clearing the roads every once in a while?
Yeah, but they were clearing main roads, and
right.
So they were clearing the highways. They weren't clearing the actual back roads. And MATVs can climb up mountains, dude. Like, and that's essentially what we did. We climbed up mountains with them shits. And so my LT was like, hey, yeah, we're just going to take one of these dirt roads. And I'm like, you obviously haven't been paying attention, man.
Yeah. I mean, that was the problem is dude, like, it's funny because, you talked about like having ISR. So we had a ton of ISR. So we like at night when we didn't have anything to do, like the JTAC would just sit in the cop, dude, and he'd be on the big screen watching roads. We found an ID. Like fucking drop a 500-pounder, dude. I mean, we just did. But again, that didn't do shit. We still hit IEDs all the time. And it was just, man. So, yeah. Well, so that one, I mean, everyone was okay. It just rocked the shit out of everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It just fucked some people up a few. Nobody had missing limbs or died, which is great. I'm happy that my whole platoon came home safe, Yeah.
I mean, but here's the thing though. Like I hit an IED and it cracked the MRAP window, but it knocked me out. But like TBIs, dude, are no joke, man. Like that's what a lot of us are finding out now is you may not look fucked up, but your brain is fucked up. And all those rockets you guys shot, like we used to shoot rockets all the time too. And I'm like, dude, that shit probably fucked my brain up.
Well, the crazy thing is those symptoms don't start to manifest until you slow down. Life starts to get a little bit okay, and that's kind of like what happened with me.
Yeah. We'll get into it. Okay. All right. So you get back from this. This is your second one. Okay. What year is this now when you get back from this one?
Like December 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, and then when do you guys roll out again? 2010?
So I actually got reassigned, or I did a PCS to Fort Bragg. When I got back, I met my daughter's mother. She was the daughter of a rigger, a parachute rigger, and or stepdaughter. She was of age. Her and I are like maybe 2 years apart, and so I met her. They ended up getting stationed in Alaska, so she had to go to Alaska with them. And in transit to Fort Bragg, she met me up. We got married, everything like that.
So you, after two deployments.
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
Oh man, there was a lot of puppy love there, man. We're better friends now than we ever have been, and I'm grateful for that friendship that we have because it only benefits my kid.
Right.
But definitely having a family in the Army is fucking wild.
Yeah. So how long? Yeah, because this is a question I like to ask because me and my wife have been married. I was 20, she was 18. She did 2 deployments with me. We're still married, but we never had kids. And I think that was one thing that helped us. We never had kids till I got out. And I think that's a big thing. So how, like y'all get married? When does this kid come out?
Oh man. I found out that she was pregnant with my daughter. Literally, I would say 5 days after I processed into Fort Bragg.
Oh,
yeah.
So what was the new unit like with different culture? Was that anything different? Kind of surprised you there?
Yeah. So 82nd was really different because Fort Bragg itself is massive, huge. There's so much training area, right? Like if you're not training, you're not doing your job, you know? Whereas when I was in Italy, I was on a base that was 1 mile by 2 miles long. So it wasn't big at all. And everybody was close knit. And, we were all family because that's what we had. Go to Fort Bragg and they're like, no fraternization. No, you can't drink with the guys, right? Like you've got, you're an NCO or you're going to be an NCO. You need to start acting like one. I'm like, fuck, I'm still one of the Joes, man.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So this is like big Army rules here, versus small unit kind of. And it's funny. So did you re-enlist at some point right here?
So my initial contract was for like 3 years and 20 weeks, like a year out from my contract being expired. I re-enlisted to stay in 173rd. And when my DEROS came up, I called Branch and I said, anywhere but Fort Bragg, please. And then they sent me to Fort Bragg. I guess they heard, they didn't hear anywhere. But yeah, I got sent to Fort Bragg, man, and it was crazy. I went on 2 deployments with that unit as well. Well, one with 4th Brigade and then one with 1st.
Yeah, so you go out with 4th. How long after there?
Oh, man, like 5 months.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So you're newly married, and they're like, we're going to Afghanistan. What did this chick think? What's your ex-wife think?
I mean, she was kind of like, hey, the fucking Army sucks, but she was around it enough to understand like, what was going on. And so she was really supportive of me and my career, which I'm really grateful for. the time that we were together. She was always supportive of it. If I was going to an Army school for career progression, she was always there to help me study. So I'm like super grateful for her.
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. Okay, so where do y'all go on the third rotation?
We go to Kandahar province down south. And so we're like, so we go to Kandahar province, but we go to like Maiwan and we go to Siachoy and a few other places around there, which is like, and you know this, IED fucking central. So that's where I started like actually paying attention to threats. Actually started like, I wasn't like, oh, I can just free float and step wherever the fuck I want to, right?
Yeah.
I had to pay attention. And that's where like a lot of the tactics that would be used later on in the war were developed, where we had minesweepers, we had dudes carrying baby powder everywhere with them to mark, you know, safe areas. But also because we're focused down, we're not focused out.
Right.
And so we were being engaged in firefights as well as the IED threat. So like just the anxiety was through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing. The thing is one of the things, any combat, IEDs, especially the anti-personnel IEDs, they want to draw you to a fight. So for the civilian listeners, they will set up an ambush and they'll have a line of IEDs. And then what you'll do is they'll watch what you do. So when they shoot at you, they know they're going to turn online and assault the enemy. Well, if you do that, you're going to walk right into their ambush. And so now you have a choice. Now you have to maneuver under fire while sweeping for IEDs. And it's a whole level, like he's saying, like Sean's saying, it's a whole level of bullshit because it sucks because you can't just take off running. Like you can, but you might not have any legs after that.
Yeah. And like we did when we got into firefights, we didn't have really any cover because you're in the red sand desert, right? Like down south there. And on top of that, like you're in the regular desert. Like we're not in the mountains anymore. You know, you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. You're in fucking you're in the desert. And so I remember firefights, man, where actually my first firefight on that deployment, we were going south. They were like, yeah, don't go this way. Like 10th Mountain, we relieved them. They were like, yeah, don't go to this village. And we were like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
We had to pull our dick out and show how big it was. We got halfway there, got in a firefight in an open field, like literally an open field, no trees, no nothing. And it was one of those things where we had to bound. And like, if you were not running, you were on the ground, right? Like the up, he sees me, I'm down. This is literally what the fuck we were doing, man. And it was terrifying. I remember like trying to call on a fire mission and looking up and I'm seeing dust kick up in front of me. I'm like, fuck, this is horrible. And on top of that too, I had a child that was due to be born. So that's more anxiety that I got going on.
Yeah, because now for the first time, the personal aspect and your mind is split because it's not all there. And that's the thing, is that's why being a soldier or an infantryman or whatever is a young man's game, because you don't need those distractions because they're hard to just put away. And so and I never thought about this, and you brought this up, but then this is a great point, is so up north, when you guys were like maneuvering under fire, there were like terrain things that you could really, I know that the terrain was a lot rougher, so there's more, places to hide, but you're saying there were more things you could take cover and concealment behind versus down south. Huh. Yeah, never really thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, so it was crazy because if we went south of our stronghold, there was nothing. But north, we had roads and everything like that with like walls that we could, duck behind. And I'm pretty sure you experienced the same thing being in Helmand, man. Like you didn't have much cover.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an irrigation ditch, great. If there's a wall or wall, great. But I know like that's why a lot of engagements in the Helmand, dude, they wasn't 100 yards or less, they were 200 or more, because you're just walking along and you start getting shot at and they're like, where the fuck are they coming from? You're like, the fucking tree line. And you're like, what fucking tree line? the one over there.
Yeah. Yeah, they would shoot at us from rooftops.
Yeah.
And so essentially, like, we started adapting to their tactics, and we would go out at night. I was a part of a scout platoon, and I was attached to Cav Scouts, but we were like the infantry company. So we were running infantry missions under the Cav name. And so
Yeah.
we would adapt to their fighting techniques, and we would go take over a structure for a day, kick the people out of the structure, and then post up on the rooftops and inside the building. And that's what kind of kept most of us alive.
That's it. That's nice. I like that.
I've slept on more dirt floors on that deployment than I ever care to think about sleeping on dirt floors again.
Yeah, I know. My kids are like, let's go camping. I'm like, I've done enough government sponsored camping for a lifetime, bro. So, yeah, so y'all were basically setting up like OPs essentially. Like, dude, like, that's nice. Great small unit tactics. Man, I love to hear about this kind of shit because it's like, there's the one thing everyone is supposed to do, but it doesn't always work and it doesn't work everywhere. Like, there's no one size fits all when it comes to tactics. It depends on the area. It depends on the enemy disposition. It depends on so many different things. And that's cool that y'all overcame that. That's pretty tight. I like that. So is this one down here? Are you guys, so you said you're with an infantry company, you're with the Cav Scouts. So yeah, I mean, is there anything super different on this deployment that you felt was a little more different than the other two?
Yeah. Well, first, the obvious, I'm fighting in the desert, not in the mountains.
Right.
Secondly, their tactics, the way that they would maneuver, was a lot different. Also, that was about the time where they started introducing MTTs, so your female engagement team, which were predominantly medics. We had EOD at our disposal. We had combat engineers at our disposal. But we didn't have the artillery, mortar, or aircraft support. So that was like a big barrier.
Man, I think it's weird. Especially, or you would think have that. Wow. Okay. So how was the engagement, the female engagement teams? And I'm only going to ask because we had one come by our position one time during deployment, and First Sergeant pulled us all in. And now the other platoons, right, the OPs wasn't there, but he was like, he set us all down. And he's like, motherfuckers, if I hear one word, one of y'all even saying the wrong thing, he's like, I will burn you so hard. And we were like, all right, cool, we got you. But they were cool. They went out, they did. Remember anything crazy, but we didn't take them anywhere hot. We were like,
oh no, they wanted to go to the fucked up places. Like, they were just like one of the dudes, and it was, I mean, they were attractive, don't get me wrong, but they were just like one of the dudes. I mean, eventually each one of them, there was two of them, each one of them would go and marry a first sergeant at some point. So it was like this, the seeds were planted a long time ago.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, I've heard of some female engagement teams that have gotten into some shit and they've earned their stripes, man. And it's like, hey, dude, I've never discriminated. I've just always said, if you put females and males together, you're gonna fuck up. I'm sorry, it's just gonna happen. Like,
yeah,
it's the way it is.
We had gotten in a firefight with the engagement team, and they were right behind me because they were part of the headquarters element. And I'm sitting there and they're like, we need to go. I'm like, do you want to get shot? Because fucking go ahead. Yeah. I'm not stopping you. Nobody's stopping you. I was annoyed as fuck at that point because I was like, shut the fuck up. We got to stay right here until we're ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised because we had in the Marine Corps, the first sergeants they're not always 0311, so they're not infantry. So you may get a new first sergeant for your company, and he may be like supply or logistics or something like that. Yet crazy, but in the Marine Corps, and I think the Army's similar. They're not responsible for tactics. They're responsible for beans, bandages, and bullets. That's it. So he did a great job at that. But I remember the first couple of firefights, and I remember like first sergeant got it, dude, and we were just like, "Hey, dog, like go get it, bro." Like So it, it's not always like that. Sometimes you have guys get out there and they ain't never done anything like that, and they do well. So
Yeah.
it's not. It's okay. So anything else crazy on this third one?
Yeah, man.
That's about.
I watched my best friend get blown up right in front of me. He ended up dying. So we were doing this like week-long clearing mission outside of like one of our battalion headquarters, Choi, and we were the furthest, element out. So we were clearing. We had our minesweepers. We also had combat engineers that were doing the MPOPs and the APOPs, shooting the fucking rockets out with the grenades to clear a route for us. And we got to this point where there was a structure to our right and we had an open field to our left. Either way, it would have been bad. So my LT is like, all right, we're going to go through this structure. We're going to clear through the structure and continue on. And so the structure had an opening in front of us, and then cat corner to that, another opening for the exit. And it was like a small garden in there. And so we start clearing through it, and I make it to the doorway of this structure, and I just, I see this like big ass black cloud, feel the concussion. We know something bad happened. We rushed up there, and it was my buddy Nick Olivas, and he had lost his legs, lost one of his arms. The only reason that his right arm was still intact was because it was attached to the mine house. So he's like holding it.
Man.
And the fucked up thing is like, dude was still alive. Right. So like he was in a lot of pain and a lot of shock. But the man, like I've seen some, I've seen people pass away, but I've never seen anybody like still hold their composure. And while he was in shock, we walked up there. He was pale. Like I remember it like it's yesterday. His legs looked like shredded pork. His arms, same thing. Like I remember the smell. I can pick the smell out of nowhere. And we get there. He's pale, but he's like looking up at us. And we had the female engagement team, and they were working on him. Our medic was working on him, and they had to reach up into his pelvis, to stop the bleeding. And they got up there, and he's like, hey, got a question. And they're like, okay, what's up? And he looks at the female engagement team, and he's like, is my dick okay? And she was like, Nick, I think your dick is fine. He's like, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. We got him on the Black Hawk, and he didn't make it. He didn't even make it to Kandahar. He died on the flight. We didn't know about it. That was like an hour and a half into our 7-day mission.
Wow.
And so we wouldn't find out for a few days that he passed away. I got one of his ID tags. His squad leader got one of his ID tags. And that was kind of like something that haunted me for like 10 fucking years, man. Like seriously. I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it at all. It was like one of those things when his name would come up, I would just deflect away from it and be like, yeah, he was, it is what it is. But there was a lot behind it too. Like him and I had gotten to an argument prior to that mission, and I couldn't let my pride go. And so, I would walk and tap everybody's head and say, I love you. And I got to him and I couldn't say it because I was so fucking angry. And so there's that survivor's guilt, right?
Yeah.
There's that feeling of if I could have said one thing, like I know exactly what I would have said. Unfortunately, I wasn't afforded that opportunity.
Yeah. Man, had to have crushed you. Had to have crushed. Man. Yeah. And that's one of those things that you never know, man. Like you never know when it's time to punch that clock, dude. We just don't know, and the problem is it sucks because it's like you have this mentality where you're like, if I die, it's cool. Like it's no big deal, right? We say that all the time. We're like, if I would have died, no big deal. But when your buddy dies or, you know, your teammate or something like that, it's soul crushing, man. Like, and that's, God, dude, I'm sorry, man. Like, so after that, how was that on the deployment? I mean, I imagine that probably fucked you up for a minute.
Oh, it did, man. It did. And it sucked even worse because the dude was 20 years old and he was, you know, newly married like I was. He had a kid that was less than a year old. Right. So like all of that feeling came. And I spoke at his celebration ceremony when we went back, and it was cool, but the mentality changed because it's like, you know, we've taken so many of yours. Now you took one of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, man. And so directly after that, like after that happened, I noticed that there was no rear security. You know, so I started pulling dudes back to provide rear security, and I like turned the corner. I saw this guy. He was in white man jams with like beads, counting like prayer beads. And I was like, you know, I put my fucking sights right on his forehead because this was like minutes after it happened. Like to see an Afghani in an area like that after that happened, you know, as well as I do, he had part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I put my fucking sights on his forehead, and he looked up and saw me. And like for that split instant, I was like, I could take you out right now. But then it was, you know, I thought about it and like all of the questions. I don't know that he pulled the trigger. I don't know that he set this up, right? I just know that this looks really fucking suspect.
Yeah.
And I put my weapon down. I told him to go, and he left. And I think that's like one of the best decisions I ever made for myself, because that shit would have been a war crime.
Yeah. And also, like, not only with the guilt of just your friend dying, then, like, you know, because you would have justified it at the time easily. You know, you could have shot that dude in the dome piece and been like, fuck it, you slept great. But years later, you would have always wondered, what did he? Was it? Could he have just really been an innocent bystander? You know, you don't know. Yeah, man. Dude. Man. Okay, so what? 2010. So you get back from this one in what, 2011?
No, so we ended up getting back. That was in 2012. So we got back. It was like 7-month deployment. It wasn't long, but we did a lot. And when we got back from that deployment, back at Fort Bragg, it was like I started getting approached by, you know, to go to leadership schools and stuff like that. I changed up teams, working with a whole new set of dudes, which was great because new, you know, fresh face. I ended up going to like basic leaders course, advanced leaders course, which is like your NCO, senior NCO classes that you go to in the Army, and then, you know, JFO school. And with my job, we had to do, you know, FIST competitions. We had to get certified every year in our jobs. It was doing that. And like, I was at the peak of, I was in my prime in my job. Like I fucking knew everything. And I was teaching dudes how to do their job and stuff like that. And it was great. But like, I had that lingering shit in the background, you know, my best friend passing away. And I numbed it, dude. I just numbed it with alcohol. I numbed it with so much shit, man. It was bad.
How was your marriage doing this time?
It was like quick. It was going downhill. But it wasn't like going downhill where I was out there cheating on her, or she wasn't like calling the cops. It was just like we fought a lot and we argued a lot. And she would be like, "You need to quit drinking."
Yeah.
And I would quit drinking for a minute just so to get her off my fucking back. But then I just turned right back around right to it when I felt like I was good enough to start drinking again.
And you're not talking to anybody, are you, at this point about any of this shit?
No, man. No, I'm literally just hiding it, man. Just fuck. I was like, I don't know how to address it. I mean, there's different like reasons why I didn't. It wasn't just because of that, but it was like the stigma in the military, right?
Oh yeah.
If you go and you talk about your problems, or, you know, they say, hey, if you got a problem, go get it fixed. But if you go get it fixed, you're a bitch. That's the stigma, right? And so I really couldn't talk to anybody about it. I wasn't medicated for anything at all. And then on top of that, I was terrified that I would lose my position.
Yeah. 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 What's your rank at this time?
I was an E5 going, getting looked at for E6.
Okay. So you were a sergeant.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So what year did you turn up for this last rotation?
So it was 2014 was my last rotation. I was in RC West. So we're in Herat province, right on the Iran border. And that deployment was cake. Like no firefights. We had one rocket come in, no IEDs, and we guarded Department of State in the middle of a city in Afghanistan, in a 4-star hotel.
Wow.
Like when I mean 4-star hotel, I'm not exaggerating. Like it was a multi-layered hotel. It had armored windows. We got catered meals every day, 3 gyms in that bitch. Like it was insane. When we had our own rooms, like we had our own rooms and we had dish TV attached to it. So, and like free Wi-Fi. So I was just living it up, man. It was great.
God dang, that sounded like the end of my deployment to Kuwait, except I wasn't staying in a hotel, but we had like barracks and I had like cell phone service. So when I was at Kuwait, I was like texting and FaceTiming my wife all the time. And, but honestly, that connection to the real world makes it suck kind of worse because even though that's the thing that guys that only went to Afghanistan or only went on a MEU where you had limited communication, they don't understand is when you have that much communication, you just feel like you're trapped there for however long you're there. Even though it's not, you're there.
There was too much access to me.
Yeah.
There's and I made it that way. Like I didn't have to be on my phone or my tablet or computer, right? Like I actively did that. But also that deployment, like it was great. It was easy. It was calm, whatever. I spent a lot of time in the gym. But the issue with that is like, especially with me, is like idle hands do the devil's work. And I was like, well, I'm not really in love with my wife, and that marriage ended quickly.
So did you guys separate while you were on deployment or?
No, we separated after I got back home. Okay. Yeah, so we were in North Carolina at the time. The separation was a year. She agreed to backdate the separation to a certain period of time. And I had to take her and my daughter down to Fort Benning. And dude, it was like, that was traumatic in itself too, because, as a father, I never wanted to be like my dad, but I found myself, mirroring my dad's behaviors. And it was crazy. But I didn't waste any time, dude. As soon as I got out of a relationship, I got into another one. And here's the crazy thing, man. You hear some wild fucking stories about people getting married. I had a 3-hour turnaround. So literally, I went in for divorce at noon, got the paperwork, got divorce finalized. 3 hours later, I'm getting remarried.
Oh,
yeah. Not my finest. I'm not proud of that, but it happened.
You're beaten. I had a podcast guest that was married like 4 or 5 times. I can't remember. El Sicario, you know who you are if you listen to this, you jackwagon. And I thought there was no beating that record, but Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how much longer do you have active duty when you get back? So you get back, you're taking care of the divorce. Are you still active duty at this point?
Yeah. So I'm active duty. I got about 5 years left before, my career is kind of over. I ended up getting promoted as staff sergeant, which is great. Literally that summer that I got promoted was insane because I was training all over the world. So I would go down to Louisiana to JRTC, do some training with the Texas National Guard to teach them, our tactics. Come back to Fort Bragg for a month and then leave, go to England to learn how to jump out of a British aircraft.
Shit.
Yeah, jump with the British Royal Air Force and then came back 2 weeks later. I'm back on a plane back to Germany to do a big training rotation with the British, German, and Dutch Army.
Wow. So, dude, living the dream, bro.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I got promoted, and it was right about the time where like the Army was like, okay, your contract's going to expire.
Mhm.
And so one of the perks that I got was duty station of my choice, as long as my list was open to it. And I wanted to be as close to my daughter as possible. And at the time, my daughter's mother had gotten remarried. They moved out to Fort Lewis, Washington, and the closest I could get to her was Alaska, was 425. So I picked there, took a road trip from North Carolina to Alaska. It was wild. I drove through Canada, crazy. But I got to Alaska, and it was much like the 173rd when I was in Italy, where everybody was close knit. I knew some people there, so I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel like I was the new kid on the block. But that's when the symptoms of from years of not taking care of myself started springing up. That unit was slated to go on a deployment in 2018, 2017 to 2018. And we had the ANAM test, the pre-deployment memory test and all that stuff to, check your brain. And I miserably failed it. Like, yeah, everything, memory, reaction time, cognitive processing, like all of it. And when I went up to get my results, the nurse was like, we need to get you seen right now. Like, there's no waiting. And so I started this pipeline of treatment for traumatic brain injury. And at the time I was, I thought to myself that everybody goes through this shit. If I'm going through it, everybody goes through it, but nobody does, right? I was having a hard time, formulating sentences, would stutter over my words. I would have, bouts where I would pass out and I would wake up on the floor. My emotional range was all over the place. So I started doing this pipeline of treatment where I was doing, where I got an MRI of my brain. I did occupational therapy, music therapy, which was really beneficial, talk therapy, all kinds of stuff, speech therapy, dude. It was great, but it got to a point where the Army was like, you're too fucked up to, for us to keep going. And that was in 2018. And, at the time I wasn't drinking. I was really big into the gym. So I was like trying to keep myself physically fit within the limitations that I had. And my marriage started spiraling out of control. And I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, I was like, fuck this. I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore. I made every reason why I didn't want to be there anymore. I went on a month-long bender where I didn't do anything but go to work, come home, drink, and go to sleep. Yeah, dude, it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And June 1st, 2018, I had a suicide attempt. I woke up in the hospital. My first sergeant was there, and he was trying, he was like, you're fucking idiot, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, that's not something I need to hear right now. Yeah. And so I checked myself into the mental health ward there on base, and I spent 11 days in the hospital. And it was just like what you would think, man. White jumpers, white shoes, white walls, everything like that. But it was the much needed break that I needed, And so February 5th, 2019, I got medically retired out of the Army for TBI, and the transition sucked ass.
I bet. See, that's wild that you checked yourself into that.
They released me from the hospital. I went home. And I had nobody else, right? Like, I was like, I survived this one. There's no guaranteeing that I'm not going to attempt again.
Right.
And I had a knock on my door, and I went to the door, and it was my platoon sergeant as well as one of my guys. And he, one of my guys was like, you all right? You okay? We heard what happened. I was like, I don't know. Like, just stone cold, like fucking no emotion. He was like, I don't feel safe with you being at home by yourself. Pack a bag. I'm taking you to my house. And I spent, that night into the next day at his house. And the very next day I checked myself in because nobody else was going to refer me.
Yeah.
Because once you attempt suicide, everybody looks at you as a shitbag. You become a weak link. And so I was like, I can't be seen like such. And it wasn't even like an optics thing. It was like, I have a problem.
Yeah.
and I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I'd spent a majority of that time in Alaska in the training room because of my injuries as the training room NCO. And so like I had consistently stood up and had my guys' backs. Even so much so like my first sergeant came in before that deployment and he was like, "Oh, you know, tell me all your injuries." And so guys were like, we had guys that broke their leg and their hip on jumps. We had two guys that had testicular cancer. And
holy shit.
and he was like, "Oh, so all of it's in your head." And I lost it. I was like, "Man, fuck you." I was like, these dudes just gave up life, limb, and eyesight for you. And you just want to come in and play fuck games. And I got mad. And like, I was that close from hitting them. I'm glad that I didn't. But it got to that point where I got unprofessional. But it was, you know, and the guys that served under me in the training room, the one, you know, I'm still good friends with quite a few of them. And the one thing that they always say is, you always stood up for us. You always had our back, even when it made you look bad. And I was like, I take pride in that because, you know, I feel now, and even more now than I did before, that you're a human being before you're a serviceman.
That's right.
You know, you got a whole litany of things that are happening outside of work. And who am I to say that you're a piece of shit because you had a bad day?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I knew a lot of, and I've said this plenty of times, I knew a lot of guys who were great Marines, but terrible fucking human beings. And I knew dudes who were great human beings, but terrible Marines, you know? But the thing is we've talked about this, is even with the hazing shit, the one thing is I've always said is that there's nothing wrong with it. You just always have to keep in mind that person is a human being. Once you start treating that person less than a human being, then that's where you start crossing the line. You know, usually you roll with that, then you're usually good. But yeah, man, like taking care of your guys is important, because then too, when something's wrong with you, your guys will be like, "Hey, what's wrong?" Because you do all good at this and you show them that good example of, you know, this is how Marines or soldiers or, you know, whatever are taken care of. You get out, you get medically discharged. Where do you go from there?
So I got medically retired, and I stayed in Alaska for a little bit. The divorce got finalized. I met somebody else. She lived in Alaska up north. I didn't jump right into a marriage though, man. Like I was like, I learned my lesson, but not the full lesson. You know what I mean? I learned part of it. Don't rush into it. So I got out in February. We ended up getting married in May. And so I waited a few months, you know? And I had the hardest time finding a job, like absolute hardest time. Because being an FO doesn't translate very well out in society, right? On top of that, there's very limited amount of things I can do, you know, with the injuries, and the VA wasn't helping me out whatsoever. And I ended up getting hired at an air cargo company that would fly out to some of the villages in Alaska, and I was working customer service. And like, you can see where this is going. I fucking hated people. I despised 90% of society because they didn't have the same morals and the same ethics that I did. I was catering to people that were rich. I was catering to people that had severe personality traits that I didn't enjoy. And so I hated people. But like the macho side of me came out. I worked in a section of all women, and they understood my sense of humor, but the men didn't, which was weird. So like one of the times I walked into my boss's office and I was like, "Hey, Angie." And she's like, "What?" And I was like, "What's the fastest way to a man's heart?" With like all of the male managers there. And she's like, "I don't know, Sean, what is it?" And I was like, "An axe." And just turned around and walked away. And that instilled fear in them. And at the time I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude, they should be afraid of me. I'll fuck them up, right? I'll put them in one of these rotors on one of these aircrafts." But the reality is, man, I was just turning into a piece of shit, an entitled piece of shit. And that's not who I wanted to be. And then I fell into addiction real hard, man. I started drinking all the time, dude. Like 4th of July, 2019 rolled around and My at the time wife was like, "Hey, do you think you're good to drink?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. Different scenario, different place, different people." And I went down a rabbit hole for like 6 fucking months, man. And like, it took 6 months for me to completely destroy everything that I had built, right? Like, I was in line to get a promotion at work. I started calling out because I was hungover. Um, I was starting to save up money. I was making like $2,000 every 2 weeks working at this air cargo company. I was set for a pay raise. That I went out the window. I ended up in jail on an assault charge in December, and that's what kind of got me sober, man. I was like, I went to work and I came home. It was a Friday, and I still lived on Fort Richardson at the time because they had opened it up for veterans and stuff. And so I had to drive by one of the gas stations coming in the gate, and I was like, I got my Christmas bonus. I can now get 2 bottles of Hennessy, not just one, 2. Before, and I got home before I even shut my engine off. I was cracked that bottle, drink. I didn't eat anything all day, and like an hour and a half later, I woke up outside of my house. Like, it was December in Alaska, so it was really cold. Woke up without a shirt on, without a jacket on, just like steaming, raging. And I walked in my house, and my house was destroyed. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? I don't remember none of it. And I looked down the hallway, and my at the time wife is on the floor, and I'm like, what the fuck? And that was the first time any of that had ever happened. And she was like, you hit me? And I said, I don't remember, but if you're saying that I did, I did, So I called the Anchorage Police Department. I was like, take me away. There's something severely wrong with me. And so that kind of ushered in me getting sober. And I now work with veterans that are justice involved to get them sober, get them clean, get them the mental health support that they need. It's very important to me. It's like part of my journey to keep me clean and sober.
Okay. Wow. So when did you move to where you live now? When did that?
I knew that you were going to ask that. So the end of 2022 was really fucked up, right? Like I was like a year into podcast. God damn it, this camera. I was like a year into podcasting, and the podcast was going strong. It wasn't like there weren't big numbers, but I never really cared about the numbers. I was working with the justice involved veterans. I had gotten certified as a peer support specialist, looking at, getting hired on a job. And the week after Thanksgiving, my at the time wife came to me and said, I'm not happy. And I said, okay, well, let's figure out how we can, work through that. The next day she said, I don't want to be married. Then the very next day she came and said, I have a house. And then the following day she was moving all of her stuff out. And she cleared the house of everything. And this was literally after I paid all the bills. I was broke as fuck, didn't have no money. And I was left with a 12-pack of ramen and a 12-pack of water to survive on. And I just sat in complete misery. That was the first time since I actually got sober that I dealt with any kind of fucked up trauma like that. And one of my medics kind of checked up on me one day and was like, I can't see you, going through this alone. Is there anywhere you want to go? I'll buy you a ticket. You just pay me back. So I flew back to my dad's house, and I had only packed enough to stay a month. And then I started finding out that she had cheated on me and that she was with this other guy. And I was like, there's nothing for me to go back to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came with the intention of staying for a month, and I ended up just staying.
So after you went to jail for that assault, you never drank again after that?
Nope. Yep. No. So essentially what happened was I went to jail for the assault, but the assault was a misdemeanor, which is crazy. It was because I didn't leave bruises. And I entered into what's called a veterans therapeutic court, where you're held to a standard, much like the military. There's so much I had to do. I had to go to like anywhere from 4 to 5 AA meetings a week, UAs almost every day, urinalysis almost every day to keep me accountable. I had to do many different forms of therapy to include like anger management. But I went above and beyond all of that. I got to a point where I realized that there was something wrong with me and I needed the answers. And so I applied myself in my program. I graduated early. Well, I didn't graduate early, but I graduated on time with no problems. And I've never touched alcohol since.
Okay, so during this time that you're going through all this, obviously that's a good thing that was a felony that saved your ass. This to me, holy shit! If it would have been with a weapon, if you'd have had a weapon, they'd have tagged your ass for the felony.
Oh yeah.
Holy. Okay, well that's good. But so during this time is when you're finally becoming. You're not. You get sober. You're going through all this. Do you start to become? And I always say this is the reason that veterans are so good when they're older. Not all of us, some of us, is because we become self-aware. We begin to realize like this is why we're doing like this is the self-destructive behavior, you dickbag, if you'd have realized this 15 fucking years ago. You know what I mean? And so like are you starting at this point now that you're sober, you're like, okay, I'm becoming aware, like this is why I am, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm starting to see that, right? I'm starting to see that a lot of things that I suffered from weren't normal. And and one of the things, like a lot of myths got disproven or dispelled in that time frame. So like one of them is I always demonized my anger. I was always like, you shouldn't be angry. There should be no reason why you're angry. Your anger is terrible, but it's not. The anger is just surface for whatever is lying underneath, right? So like the anger can be anything from sadness to happiness to whatever. But I always equate it to this. The military teaches you how to get angry, but they don't teach you how to turn it off. It's like they installed installed a door and then they broke the handle off and said, "Hey, deal with it." Right? So I always knew that I was angry. I just didn't know how to turn it off. And I say that I used to be like Hulk from the first Avengers movie where, Cap was like, "Hey, Bruce, you need to get angry." And he was like, "Funny thing is I'm always angry." And he switches. And that was me, dude. I had so much anger and resentment built up that I was like, the wrong person says the right thing and they're going to meet their maker.
Man,
and I'm glad to that point.
Hulk analogy is so great, dude. That is excellent because and I'm kind of a Avengers nerd, but in the later movies, remember Bruce doesn't want to get angry because he's like, I can't control it. And like, but then he finally learns to control it. That's a great analogy. Sorry to cut you off, dude.
No, it's cool. But then when I went to a class provided by the VA called Understanding Anger, and I despised the teacher, like the counselor, man, because she was just like this arrogant asshole. But I learned so much from her. I learned, that my anger is not bad. That is a natural human reaction. I shouldn't demonize it. And when I got done with that class, I was like, "Hey, when's the next class? Because I want to come back. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything." And so I went and did it again, and it was awesome, man. And I went through this other class that was called Moral Reclination Therapy. It's like a 12-step program. But the very first step in any recovery program is the step that breaks you down, like absolutely shatters your reality. And this one for me was called the Bag of Secrets. And so they built this pyramid and you had to draw on the pyramid, and it broke it down by stages of your life, like 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, and then a year ago. And you had to admit the things that you have not told anybody.
Oh, shit.
So I felt like the biggest piece of shit when I got done. I even called my mentor and I was like, "Hey man, I don't feel great about this. Like normally if you admit things, like you're supposed to feel good." It's like, "No, not this. Not this, man." And it taught me rigorous honesty, and it taught me that I can only lie to myself. And that was the moment that I started being rigorously honest with not just myself, but with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, dude, I was surrounded by veterans in my veterans treatment court, and that was awesome. After I graduated, I had a bunch of vets come to me and they say, "Hey, look, we've got this processing group that we go to every week, but it's not veteran specific." And so I went to the alumni program of other men and women that went through treatment courts in Alaska, and I was like, "Is there any way that we can start up a veteran, a veteran operating group?" And they were like, "Yeah, you're in the shoot, Sean." I was like, "Fuck." So yeah, I mean, I ended up starting that up, and it's still going strong. I started up in 2020, and it's still going strong 6 years. I became a peer support specialist, so helping people with their addiction and mental health struggles has kind of been part of my journey.
So now, is that support specialist that you're doing now? Is that like a paid position, or are you doing that all volunteer?
So you can do it as a paid position if you work in a clinic. I worked in a clinic at one point, and I was getting paid pretty nice. I was making 20 an hour, which nowadays ain't shit. But at the time, like, it was a lot. And so it was able to help me pay the bills and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that clinic went under. So I was using my peer support certification to train other people to become peer support once they reached a certain point in their recovery. Since I've moved back to the East Coast, I haven't been, I mean, technically you could say I'm a peer support specialist if I'm working with veterans, but I've moved more toward a holistic lifestyle and a holistic approach. So I now am a shamanic healer.
No shit. I was wondering what was going on with the flag in the background for those of you who this is an audio podcast, but it's some cool shit going on back there. Some funky shit. So you move back here. You're on the path of recovery. I love the holistic thing. I'm big into holistic stuff myself. So like that's my thing, bro. Like, I got you. So what made you dive into that? Did you get okay, I do have a question to begin with. Did you try psychedelic?
So I have not. It's been on the radar to try. I want to do ayahuasca because I've heard good things about it. But I have my own stipulations around it. I only do it if it's administered by a Native American shaman or by a shaman from South America. Because that's the most pure form of it. They know the ritual. They know how to do all of it.
Right.
And I will only do it. I won't do it by myself. I won't do it. I will do it in the presence of somebody who knows, and who can walk me through that. So yeah, I mean, I take gummies, THC gummies to go to bed, and for certain pain levels. Like, I'm not in the amount of pain I used to be in, but I got back problems. I'm an old ass paratrooper. But it THC has helped me out a lot. It's helped regulate me, keep me calm, balance some things out. But I don't smoke. I just do edibles, and that's
interesting. That THC helped me get away from alcohol, and that's why I tell guys, because there's some guys who can't do, they're like, I can't touch no substance whatsoever, but like for some guys, and I can keep some bourbon in the house. I still drink it a little too fast, but for the most part, I can have 2 glasses and say, okay, I'm done. But for some people, hey, there's a lot of guys who are like, I ain't touched alcohol since I put that shit down, and that's great, but it's not for everyone. So how'd you get into the holistic thing? And what was the dive into that?
I believe that like a lot of things in my life have been to a higher power, like put me in a position. Like, I don't believe in like the natural form of God, what people believe as God. I'm Norse pagan, so I believe in Odin and Thor and all them, which is crazy. I know. But I was running a podcast called Beyond the Veil, and it was more geared toward like paranormal and stuff like that. Because for Recover Out Loud, my other podcast, the primary one, I like to do spooky content in October, and I think that is pretty cool. And the year that I started Beyond the Veil, I had interviewed a Catholic exorcist. And so it was like really cool to get a different perspective. And I was like, there's a lot of voices that need to be heard in this community. And so I was interviewing this lady who's a psychic medium. And she, after I got done, was like, you have shamanic healing abilities. I just kind of looked at her like, me? No. No. Well, then she had messaged me and said she was going in for surgery. She had tumors on her brain. And I was like, oh man, good luck. I'll see you when you're done. I'll see you outside, whatever. She's like, I'm not making it out. And I was like, don't fucking say that. You don't know that. She's like, no, I do. I know it. And I'm not making it out. And so she went in for surgery and I didn't want to bug her. So like a week later, I ended up messaging her because I saw her name pop up on my messenger feed to check up on her. And the response I got was from her mom. She said she didn't make it out of surgery.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And from that moment forward, like I dedicated my life as, a memory to her. Like she told me I have that I have these healing abilities and I can help usher people into their healing phase of their life. And I can walk with them through it. And one of the things that she told me was, don't look for your teacher. Your teacher's going to show up. So I'm in the process of like trying to find guests for the show. And this lady from Canada messages me and she's like, hey, I'm a shamanic healer. My ears popped up. I was like, that's not something you hear every day.
No.
Like, okay, tell me more. And she was like, I have, a class that I teach. And I was like, I'm in. Just sign me up. And so when I got into the class, it was just all women except for me. And so I got to learn, the feminine side of things and focus on that. And that was cool. And then I graduated from it and I was, I started, sounds bad, but I started collecting healers. So I ended up meeting one of my best friends now. She's a Reiki healer, a Reiki master. And the first time I went in to do work or get work done by her, I was a complete skeptic. And when I walked out, I was a believer.
Oh, shit.
Dude, she literally walked to the right side and was like, you've got an injury to your knee. And I didn't tell her anything. I was like, okay. And she compacted this energy ball and pulled it out. I could feel it leave my body. And then she was like, okay, now I'm seeing like this explosion that happened under your ass and it rippled up through your spine, which was the IED.
Right.
And she alleviated a lot of the pain there.
Oh, shit.
All in the first session. And I was like, I'm sold.
I'll be back.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so I've consistently been going to see her and I do work on her and she does work on me. It's a trading system. And then I have another friend who's a Reiki healer, yoga master, sound master, breath work master. And my roommate now, well, he's going to be leaving, but he's a hypnotist. And so I've learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot from everybody. And I started diving into herbalism. And when I started diving into herbalism, I realized how much plant-based medicine can actually help people and how society has stepped away from that and now goes into pharmaceuticals. And I went to the VA, to my psych doctor, and I was like, I'm not taking your fucking poison no more. She's kind of looked at me. I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I found a better way. I found a way that's more natural, that can help. And it won't make me feel like ass. Like I was taking Wellbutrin to stabilize my brain. And I was not productive. I was not productive.
Yeah, because that, there are guys that I've talked to on the podcast that like take SS. One of my good buddies does, but it's like, I always tell people, have you tried another? A lot of the guys that still take them take such a low dose that they're like, look, like I've gotten rid of all this other shit. And see, like for me, I'm holistic in the way that I will do some natural medicines. Like my kids hardly ever go to the doctor, and people are like, how are your kids not sick? I'm like, they're not sick because we don't take them to the damn doctor every time. You know what I'm saying? And then like I take peptides. I have like I inject like and that's not holistic. Like what you're talking about, where you're talking about, hey, this root or this type of powder or something like that. But I still do some of that, and I always tell guys, I'm like, don't always jump for the pharmaceuticals, man. Look for the alternatives to just being healthy, making healthier choices, and your body being at peace and your mind being, man, that has a on your body.
Absolutely. So with that, I actually started building a holistic medicine, an old Appalachian medicine that people haven't heard of. I didn't hear of it. I got, somebody told me about it, and I was like, let me research this. It's called fire cider. And so it's got a base of apple cider vinegar with all your spicy ingredients. It's got horseradish root, ginger, turmeric, onions, chili peppers, all the shit, right? And when you combine them together and you let them steep and you let them just sit there, right? Like the apple cider vinegar pulls out all of the properties of the plants and it sits there. And then you've just built a medicine. And I take it for everything. And like this morning, I woke up and I was stopped up. My roommate was stopped up and I was like, hey, man, let's take this fire cider. He took a tablespoon of it and he was clear. And I took a tablespoon of it, cleared it right up.
I'm going to tell you, for the listeners, listen, he's making it sound easy, but my wife fire cider one every year that year. Every time I got the sniffles, she was like, take a shot of this. And I'm going to tell you right now that it will fix you. But God damn, that shit is, it's strong. I mean, it's alcohol level strong, but it's not alcohol. It's hard to describe. It's just everything. But yeah, it'll fix your ass. Yeah. Man, that's cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that can't take the raw form of it. So I have the raw form, but also have it cut with blue agave, and then another one that's cut with honey, and it does the same thing. It just takes that bite out of it just a little bit, but it holds the same properties.
See, we just forget, man. It's so easy to forget that all these medicines, they came natural. Like, aspirin, like willow bark, or is that Tylenol, one of those? All these things are just, we've just got to the point where we've made pharmaceutical versions of a natural product. And, the question is, are we missing out on something because we're making them, And, yeah, that's cool, dude. So what are you doing? Did you get anything settled with the VA? Because, like, what are you doing for a living now? I mean, are you just podcasting and making money, or?
No, so I don't make money off the podcast, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. Before I left Alaska, I filed for 100% disability for PTSD, and with PTSD with massive depressive disorder and alcoholism. And I got rated at 100%, which is great. And then I moved down to back home to Maryland, and somebody was like, "You should apply for SSDI because you can't work, right?" And it's not for lack of trying, just nobody's going to fucking hire me. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I applied for SSDI, got approved, and that put me in the house. And then, so this year I filed for combat-related special compensation. And I had no idea that I would, get approved, but I got approved at 100%. And I don't have a fucking thing to worry about now. I'm financially okay. I do sell my fire cider. I'm in the process now of like sending samples out to people for them to try. But I just made my first sale last week of the fire cider by, to a veteran nonprofit organization, which is great. But I'm not looking for the money. I want to help people as much as possible. But then on top of that too, I'm actually attending an in-person shamanic healing class. Oh, okay. And so I go to Annapolis every week. I actually go tomorrow. And we're learning, ceremonies, like how to help clear people of entities, how to do like sound healing, align the chakras, fill the chakras, stuff like that. And it's really cool. It's like really cool stuff. And it's all ancient practices that were performed in the Andes Mountains in Peru. and my teacher went and learned. So now I have like firsthand account that he goes through. And it's awesome, man. I love what I do. But because I am disabled and because, all these other things, I get to do what the fuck I want. I took a trip down to Florida like 2 weeks ago and went on an in-person podcast. If I was working, I want to be able to do that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool, man. I just wonder, I just want to know, just because I try to keep track in case anybody's still, up shit creek. Especially with the VA, man, because it's one of those things where it's like some of the dudes that need it got, some of the guys that didn't need it got too much of it, and then the guys, it's just. So I always like to make sure everybody just got taken care of. So you're obviously in a better place now. You've done all this. You understand where you're at. You know what your triggers are. You fought the demons, and you're helping other guys. So I always like to do this at the end. When you were in Alaska and you went on that 6-month binger, or when you at any time slipped and fell, what advice would you want now? What you know now, what advice would you have given yourself then, or other?
I would have said that this doesn't have to be the story. It doesn't have to be the story that ends everything. There's help out there. There's people that want to help you. You're just asking the wrong people the wrong questions. And, I would say, the most beneficial thing for me has been being vulnerable, like opening up. And I know that's like counterproductive to like what society tells us as men to be, but being vulnerable and opening up and actually talking about the things that hurt, is a benefit, right? And it's crazy because like, it's like, if I want to have a better life, I got to give something up. Right? If I want to be in a better mind frame, I have to give something up. Well, yeah, you do. It's all about sacrifice. Are you willing to give up one thing for everything? Or are you willing to give up everything for that one thing? That's a choice you have to make.
Man, that's great. Yeah, because you got guys who are so stubborn and you're so good at everything. You're so good at everything else except just talking, man. Like just let it, and it's funny because this will be the 3rd episode in a row I brought this up. When Sus came down to the house, when we did the podcast, one of the things that I told Josh was, if we'd have said that like you had to love yourself before you could love other people 15 years ago, somebody would have been like, that's gay as fuck, dog. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, just imagine you guys sitting in a tent in Afghanistan and saying that. It would have been so stupid. But the thing is that was the key. The key is to have like, and the crazy thing is one of my buddies that lived with another guy, both were wounded in Afghanistan, both had crazy ass trauma. But the thing is they lived with each other for like a year. And I asked him, I said, did you ever talk about any deep shit? He was like, no, we just got fucked up every day. And it's like, I'm like, dude, you could have fixed, we could have made progress. And that's not to say that I'm any better, because I'm not, it took a long time for us to sit down and go, hey, look, we gotta at least talk about it. It doesn't mean it's ever going to go away. It doesn't mean that you're never going to remember stuff. You're always going to remember, but it's like you can remember it in a different, because you see yourself different now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that was most beneficial about counseling for me, about talk therapy, was I learned how to manage the triggers, or how to take the power away from the trigger, really, because like, due to the IEDs, I had a hard time being a passenger in a car. And if God forbid we hit a pothole, I'm fucking losing my mind. But I learned how to take the power out of the trigger and really accept reality for what it is, that like, I'm in a situation right now that I can't change, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be changed or fixed. I just got to be able to sit through it and feel uncomfortable for a moment, and then I'll be okay. And I think that's super beneficial, for me and for many guys like me, because we get so stuck around the trigger, right? Like one of the fucking things that I hate hearing in society is you triggered me. No, motherfucker, I didn't trigger you. What triggered you is your response to the situation.
Right.
Right. Just like trauma. Trauma is the body's response to a stressful situation. So like if you
Right.
and I got into a car accident and you're like, yeah, dog, let's do that again. I'll take another. And I'm like, fuck no, man. Like that was scary as shit. We have the same situation, different outcomes. And so to sit there and just say, oh, you got to be traumatized from this. No, man. No, absolutely not. But what I can say is that trauma is relative to the person, and my trauma is not any worse than anybody's, man. And so like as long as you're willing to take that step forward and put your best foot forward, man, you're great.
Yeah, that's right. And that's is everybody experiences it different. It's just like you get into a firefight and you ask 6 dudes that were there, hey, how did it go? They're all going to give you 6 different stories from 6 different perspectives and 6 different opinions. And you can't judge someone based off of something, you know. And it's funny because, you know, when we were younger, we used to, you know, I know you've probably done the same thing. It's like seeing somebody from another unit and you're like, oh, that pogue ass bitch, you know, like, you know, we've all done that. But the thing is, now that we're older, we're like, look, you know, like maybe that person, we don't know. But again, there are guys that I've talked to guys who've been in some crazy situations. So how was it? They're like, nah, I just it was whatever. And I'm like, you know, and it's just everybody.
And that's why I don't like, I mean, I talk about my trauma and stuff, but when I talk about it to people, I've heard so many people be like, oh man, you had it so much worse than me, even civilians. And I'm like, does that matter? Because like, I'm just a dude. All right, like right now, I'm just a dude. All that shit that I went through, it's just data as to who I am now. It has no impact or no weight on me, right? So don't make it fit a narrative for you. You know, I have my days. I have days where it's great, where I can go outside, I can walk, and I can go down to my my nature trail and be fine. And then there's other days where I wake up and I'm like, I'm not leaving this goddamn bed unless I have to piss or eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow, dude. I mean, but you know, you did, you know, like you said, when you know triggers and you know where you're at and you've got a purpose. And that's the other thing is now you've been through all this, but you have a drive and you have a purpose, and that purpose, because the one thing, that's why because the one thing that I see that drives vets off a cliff now is the fact that they've like got to a point where financially they don't worry about anything, but then now they're at all the time, they're not doing shit, and I'm like, you need to go do shit, dude.
Yeah,
like
and not just men but veterans. You know, we suffer from this feeling of not having a purpose. And that's one thing that I noticed about me was like, I didn't have purpose. Even when I was working that job at the airport, like I didn't feel like I had a purpose because I fucking hated everybody around me. And it took me actually stepping into roles that were like life-changing for me. So like peer support and even the shamanic healing stuff is like, I now have a purpose, right? Even if I didn't have those, like I own this house, I build my own gardens, right? I build stuff out of wood, right? So that's another sense of purpose. And it's not just about the sense of purpose. It's about filling your day with at least one thing that you enjoy doing. So I've noticed dudes would be like, oh, I really love video games, so I'm going to spend 8 hours on a video game. It's like, dog, you need some sunlight. Right? Like, I'm pale. I get it. But like, you need some sunlight. Go out and put your face in the sun. Let the wind hit your face, man. Go get your hands dirty. Something. Don't sit inside when it's nice outside, because you don't know when the next good day is going to be.
Yeah, and that's why I tell guys, like, get outside. Like, I'm a farm manager, so I got a lot of outside time. But the thing is like, that's why I tell dudes, like, man, like that shit helped me. Like the outdoors, nature, man, it's just, that's why I don't live in like that. But that dude, man, he seemed to be killing it. One more time. What podcast did you have again? And go ahead and plug those so we know where to find you if you guys want to check out your other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on anywhere where you get podcasts, under Recover Out Loud podcast. Out loud is one word, and if you space it, you're going to find somebody else's who's not as good or has the same content as me. But that's no shade of him. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok under the Sober Shaman Sean, and Sean Young on Facebook. Big ass beard and a bald man.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it, dude. Thanks for coming on, man. It's been an awesome episode, dude, and can't thank you enough. And for the listeners, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.